Welcome to the Q Podcast.
Q is about conversation.
If we're really concerned about ending poverty, we've got to be more concerned about creating justice.
Our cultural products as Christians need to both defy and resonate with the culture.
And God's doing amazing things. His church is expanding, his church is growing.
It's not what's the purpose of my life, it's what is the purpose that's been assigned.
Stay curious, think well, advance good. This is Q.
Here's how twisted our tendency to use technology has become. As a speaker, I'm kind of hoping that you're at least somewhat focused on me. But it would also be fine with me if you wanted to tweet a little bit about what we're talking about here, because that has become a bit of an unspoken goal for speakers. So here I am doing a talk on how technology removes us from the present. Well, I'm simultaneously hoping that you'll remove yourself from the present for a few moments to send 140 characters about how technology removes us from the present.
Welcome back to another edition of the Q Podcast. I'm Gabe Lyons, the president of Q, and I am really thrilled about the conversation you're going to start having as a result of what you're about to hear today as we take on the topic that I think all of us are facing, which is how is technology affecting us, affecting our relationships, and affecting our society.
The Kims were a pretty typical 21st century family living in South Korea. They met online, got married, and had a baby girl. But that's where the Kims' online Cinderella story ends. Their baby girl was born premature and cried almost constantly. Wanting an escape from their wailing infant, the Kims went online and adopted a virtual daughter. One day, while the Kims were at an online cafe, they returned home to a tragedy. While they were taking care of their online daughter, their real flesh and blood daughter had passed away. They were so busy nurturing their digital daughter that their human daughter died from malnutrition and dehydration. Now, I'm guessing no one you know has been so sucked into technology that someone actually died. But I'm guessing you know plenty of folks who lose themselves in technology. I work with a fantastic team at the Fuller Youth Institute that studies teenagers. And let me tell you about a generation that eats and breathes technology. 58% of this generation own a desktop computer. 61% own a laptop. 18% own either a tablet or an e-reader. But the real king of technology, as you can guess, is the device in their pocket. 88% of this generation own a cell phone, and when asked to describe their cell phone in one word, they said awesome, great, good, love, excellent, convenient, useful. Now, you might think some of those words don't sound very adolescent, especially the words convenient and useful. That's because the generation I'm talking about isn't teenagers. I'm talking about adults. Are young people avid users of technology? You bet. But the best data suggests while young people may be digital natives, we adults are fast adapting digital immigrants. 83% of young people are on social media. So are 77% of their parents. The average young person interacts with the screen 11 hours a day. That's a lot. But for adults, it's 9 hours a day. So before we as adults judge teenagers for their fast texting thumbs and seemingly permanent earbuds, we need to be honest with ourselves. Because see, what you and I and the Kim family that I described, and probably the nearest 16-year-old share in common are two things. Number one, we use a lot of technology. And number two, while technology is a blessing and helps us go deep and wide in relationships, like all good things, there's a dark side. And technology can cause us to become numb, to lose connection with our present environment, to lose touch with those most important to us, and even to lose touch with ourselves. Now, before you dismiss all parallels between us and the Kim family, please heed the words of William Sailtan. William Sailtan is the tech reporter from Slate magazine who covered the death of the Kim's daughter. Sail10 writes, every time you answer your cell phone in traffic, squander hours on YouTube, text a colleague during dinner, or go to TV to escape, you're neglecting others around you. You're letting technology make other worlds even more compelling. Researchers have studied what happens to our brain when we use technology. And parts of our brain literally shut down or become numb to accommodate the new stimulation from the technology. Researchers studied this by asking a pretty simple question. Does a triangle have 3 sides? Now, I'm guessing all of us in this room can answer that question. Even the non-math fuzzy people can answer that question today. But then scientists put drivers in simulations where they paired driving maneuvers with talking on their phone, and they monitored brain activity. When drivers were turning left into oncoming traffic and answering really simple questions on their phone, like does a triangle have 3 sides, their brain activity shifted. They literally became numb to their environment. They became numb to other cars, and they became numb to pedestrians. Some folks concerned with this numbing are going on digital diets, short bursts of time where they refrain from using technology. Lori Leibovitz from the Huffington Post describes a 1-week vacation she took where she told her kids, if you see me doing anything on my iPhone other than taking pictures, take my phone away from me. Her kids were thrilled. But she described that going a week without technology created a bit of an existentialist crisis for her. But then once she settled in, she found it exhilarating to use her hands to build sandcastles instead of tap a screen. She writes hauntingly, for the first time in I don't know how long, I was really seeing my kids, and they were relishing being seen. Her technology had made her so numb that only when technology was removed could she actually see her kids. You see, this is why the phrase surfing the internet is so very appropriate. Because while technology is great in many ways, and in many ways brings depth, in other ways it causes us to skim over the surface of our relationships, experiences, and even our own feelings. Some true stories. A 17-year-old sleeps with a cell phone every night on her pillow. This is not unusual behavior for teenagers, by the way. She sleeps with a cell phone every night on her pillow. She's hoping to get that middle of the night text that shows her someone, anyone is thinking of her. Technology helps her cope with her ongoing loneliness. A widower every night, as he's having dinner, watches TV, watches the news. Technology helps him become a little bit numb to his pervasive grief. Parents who are so overwhelmed and frustrated by what's happening to their families go to Facebook for a bit of cheer. They become spin masters, distracted from the present by all the energy it takes to come up with clever Facebook-worthy posts. As one grandmother told me about her daughters, I see how my daughters are interacting with their kids, and then I see what they post on Facebook. What they post is nothing like what's really happening. Personally, technology helps me deal with my addiction to accomplishment. When I start to feel a little anxious, when I start to feel a little insecure, my ability to send a few texts or emails is like a warm blanket, a codependent, dysfunctional blanket. If you're like me, you've even sensed this tension with technology here at Q. On the one hand, I love how technology helps me keep in touch with you, and I've been texting about where we're going to meet for meals or breaks. I've been enjoying following the Twitter stream. But on the other hand, even that engagement with social media, not to mention the stream of emails that come from me from the outside world, have been a distraction to me here at Q. It was interesting sitting in the balcony this morning after the Brilliance led this wonderful music set. My whole row sat down, and guess what we did? We got out our cell phones, the entire row of us. Here's how twisted our tendency to use technology has become. As a speaker, I'm kind of hoping that you're at least somewhat focused on me. But it would also be fine with me if you wanted to tweet a little bit about what we're talking about here, because that has become a bit of an unspoken goal for speakers. So here I am doing a talk on how technology removes us from the present. Well, I'm simultaneously hoping that you'll remove yourself from the present for a few moments to send 140 characters about how technology removes us from the present. As we think about how technology affects us across the generations, senior adults, adults, and young people, there's one phrase that comes to mind: numb and number. You have my permission to tweet that if you would like. Technology itself is boasting about how it helps us do so much at the same time. We're going to look at a current AT&T ad praising multitasking.
What's better, doing two things at once or just one?
Two.
You sure?
I am absolutely positive. 2 times is awesome. The thing I can do is wave my head and wave.
That's amazing. I've never seen anything like that.
Look, I can do
Hold
it.
on, I'm watching this.
I'm gonna dizzy.
It's not complicated. Doing 2 things at once is better. And only AT&T's network lets you talk and surf on your iPhone 5.
So for kids and adults, it's considered valuable to talk and surf. So here I am ignoring my present to talk to you on the phone. But then I'm ignoring you on the phone so I can go online. Technology helps me become numb like exponentially to the second power. The current cover of Atlantic Monthly magazine describes the touchscreen generation, meaning preschoolers. And it profiles parents of preschoolers who use pass-back technology, meaning they pass or they loan their iPads to their 3, 4, and 5-year-olds so their children can explore educational apps. Now, the exact educational merit of the apps has yet to be really proven, but it lessens our guilt as parents if our kids are learning letters and numbers and colors. As we think about how generation is extending younger and across the generations, we're going to need grander and faster technology. We're going to need more gadgets. One such gadget on the horizon is Google Glass. Google Glass is a pair of glasses that has a video screen embedded in it. And using this video screen, you can take pictures and videos, send texts and emails, all while going about your day-to-day business. The cost of Google Glass is $1,500, but it's expected to come down this year. I suggest that how you feel about Google Glass, and as I'm describing that, if that's something you want or abhor, is a bit of a litmus test for how you feel about technology reaching into your present. Now, while the main focus of this talk is on technology, there are interesting parallels in the world of psychiatric medicine. I have my PhD in practical theology, not neurology. But I know this: the brain is an organ. And like all organs, it often needs medicine to be corrected. Having said that, we need to reflect on when and why we use psychiatric medicines for all generations. 2 weeks ago, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention revealed some fairly alarming statistics. 1 in 5 teenage boys are now being diagnosed with ADHD, as are 11% of school-age children. 2/3 of those who are diagnosed also receive a prescription for medicine. Now, Edward Hallowell is a psychiatrist and faculty member at Harvard who agrees with me that there is a definite biological cause to ADHD. But he also suggests that there's an environmentally triggered cluster of syndromes that resembles ADHD called attention deficit trait. And here's what Hallowell from Harvard writes. Like the traffic jam, attention deficit trait is an artifact of modern life. As our minds fill with noise, feckless synaptic events signifying nothing, the brain gradually loses its capacity to attend fully and thoroughly to anything. Now let's look at that phrase, our minds filling with noise. Is it possible that the way technology fills our mind is at least in some way contributing to our cultural challenge in paying attention? Now, I need to clarify, I am pro-technology. I use it every day. I'm not calling for the elimination of technology, nor am I calling for us to boycott psychiatric medicine. I'm not even necessarily saying we should use less of either. But I want each of us to imagine at the end of our life when we're welcomed into the kingdom by our Savior. In the midst of all the wonderful things we're going to experience, we're ushered into our own media room. And in our individual media room, there's a comfortable couch, there's cozy blankets and pillows, there's all the Starbucks or Pete's if you prefer, all the Junior Mints and popcorn you could want for free and with no calories. And you're told sitting in this media room that you're going to watch a video. The video is a compilation of all the moments in your life when you were fully present, fully attentive to what was happening, what you were feeling, and who you were with. In the midst of this talk on technology and how it can cause us to become numb, I want to ask you this question. How long is your video? How many scenes will there be of you relishing life to the fullest, not numb and not distracted? At least young people use technology to stay in touch with those in their relational core. We adults often use technology to stay in touch with those on our relational fringes. We use Instagram and Pinterest to stay in touch with those across the country and world and ignore those sitting across the table. Parents, please hear this. 28% of teenagers think their parents are addicted to their cell phones. 21% of teenagers wish their parents used their cell phones a lot less. I don't want my 3 kids' primary image of me to be with my head down on my phone or laptop. It's not just about how attentive we are to each other. What about how attentive, how available are we to God? As you think about this video at the end of your life, how many scenes will there be of you completely ready to hear what Jesus is trying to say to you, not numb, but fully alive? In Screwtape Letters, C.S. Lewis describes the strategy and tactics of Screwtape, a senior devil. Screwtape's whole job is to thwart the word of God. One day, one of the men he was assigned to was on the verge of a major spiritual breakthrough, a breakthrough that was 20 years in the making. Screwtape thought, I got to stop this. I know what I'll do. I'll distract him. So he planted a thought in the man's mind. After all, it was about time for lunch. So with lunch on the man's mind, he stood up, walked out of the room, walked out onto the street in search of a sandwich. The spiritual moment was lost. Now, regardless of your theology of demons, isn't it possible that technology is not only making us numb to each other in some ways, but also could be making us a little numb to God? Just as we're on the verge of our own spiritual breakthrough, we get that ping of a text or our phone rings and we feel like we have to take the call and the spiritual moment is lost. Earlier, I asked you to imagine this video at the end of your life and how long will it be when you're fully present? But let's zoom in a little closer. What about in April? Or how long will it even be today? You see, I love technology. I just don't want it to steal time from my video. So I'm changing my habits at home. One of the elements I love about my job at the Fuller Youth Institute is there's so much work I can do from home, and it's a flexible schedule for me as a mom. But that also means the tentacle of my job extends into my family. But now when my kids walk in the door, I shut the cover of my laptop. It tells them that they are more significant than me. And probably more importantly, it tells me that they are more significant than the work that I'm doing. I want my video to have so many scenes of me with my husband and kids, too many to count. This past weekend, I accidentally left my cell phone in a hotel room in Philadelphia. And lest you be worried, the conference where I was speaking overnighted it to me. But it was an interesting experiment in not having my phone. At first, I was freaking out. My heart was pounding, my hands were sweating. And this weekend was really strange. Like I had to print out directions. I used my home phone. I mean, how 90s is that? But I got to say, I was more present and attentive to my friends, family, and congregation when I wasn't worried about my phone. Parents, you might want to try what one family I know does, that when the parents and the teenagers walk in the door, they put all their phones in a basket in the living room. Even the friends' teenage children do that. Actually, the kids have come to like it because they're actually focused on who they're with. You might want to try what my brother does. When he goes out to eat, he and his friends and colleagues put all their phones on a stack in the center of the table. If anyone reaches for their phone before the bill comes, that person has to cover the entire tab. You can try that at lunch today. Maybe get a free meal out of this talk. So often, as was said yesterday, we in the church are known for what we're against. Let's be for something. Let's be for using technology and being present. I think we followers of Jesus across the generations can have the best, longest, and most exhilarating videos of all.
Well, if you're like me, this has been a convicting few minutes to just think deeply about this. We often don't take enough time to consider how our actions, how we're adopting technologies and how it's really having an effect on others. I know practically there's a few things I've been learning about that I'm applying to my own life to try to do a better job with this. One of the practical tips as I was reading about top 10 ways that we can manage technology better, one was to turn the color off on our phones. I didn't realize this was even possible, where you can actually turn your phone to black and white because you're more drawn to color, and so are our children. And so when you make it a little less interesting and a little less enjoyable, it tends to help you not use it as much. Another thing was to lengthen your password. Instead of a quick 3-4 character password, what if you lengthened it to 20 characters and made it just a little harder to pick up that phone and just check in on things? Again, practical things. Another thing I'm doing, I'm still waiting. It's on order. I ordered something called the Light Phone. But essentially, all it does is takes us back to the old days when a phone simply was used for phone calls. You can store up to 10 numbers in it, and you can forward your phone to that phone. So if somebody really needs to get a hold of you, they call you. They don't just text you. And so at 5 o'clock when the day's over, you turn your phone off, your smartphone, leave that computer of a phone in a basket, just like Kara says. And then if somebody really needs to reach you, they'll call you. So there's so many practical things we can all do, but I'd ask you to take action. At our Q 2017 event, April 26 to 28, we're actually talking about this topic a lot because it's an area in which Christians can be more countercultural. We're going to have with us Andy Crouch, and Andy Crouch, who's been one of our top presenters at Q in the past, he's going to be giving a talk specifically on managing technology. Again, taking some of this latest data and saying, now practically, what does this mean for us? How can we do better? I thought the stat that Kara gave, that 28% of teens think their parents are addicted to their phones, is something all of us should be listening to, because I know for me with 3 children hitting those teenage years, that if I were to ask them, I bet they would definitely be in the 21% at least that says, I wish my parents used their phones a lot less. And so how are we going to respond to that? I think we have to take real practical action. We have to set up these kind of rules in our own life so that we're really living this out and embodied for the people God's put us around and wants us to show up and be fully embodied and present for. Well, I appreciate you listening to this podcast. I think it's one of those podcasts we hope that every week you're getting a little different dose, a different angle, whether it's about your calling and how you're living that out faithfully in the industry in which God's called you, or being inspired maybe by someone's story of how they're trying to be faithful and how they're trying to practice excellent work and bringing common grace into the world through their hands and through their minds. Or it's things like this, where we're really challenging status quo and saying, hey, some of the ways we see the culture going today don't necessarily lead to human flourishing. So how are we going to live differently? What are we going to do differently? And so I hope today's just been one more edition of this for you. I hope that you'll consider taking this and sitting around with your family members, bringing together a few friends and saying, let's listen to this 18-minute talk. You can get that online at qideas.org, where you can search for this. It'll be on our homepage this week, but you can also search for it under Numb Generations, and you can just watch that talk together. But I would encourage you to listen to it and then create 10 minutes, 15 minutes for those closest to you to say, how are we going to think well about this? Are there any changes we need to make as a family or as friends, as a community, about how we're going to live a bit differently because of what we've learned here? And as you go forward, know that we're praying for you. We know that's not easy to make these kind of changes in behavior and these decisions, but we hope it's informing you to think well, to know how you can be a part of advancing good in your community. Well, I look forward to our next episode and continuing learning together and these conversations. So join us again next week, and we'll look forward to seeing you there.